Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you and back to Ozark. So I'm continuing with the second season, so season 2, episode 2, and this episode is called The Precious Blood of Jesus. Full spoilers from the start as always. A pretty packed episode, quite a bit happening in this one. I only really have two small complaints about it, so I'll get them out of the way straight away. The first one is to do with Rachel, who we see back again in this episode. She's reintroduced to the drama. I suspected she probably would pop up again at some point. And it turns out we cut to her and she's been living it up a bit rough. She's obviously fallen on hard times and she's got into a bit of a drug problem. We see her with some quite unsavoury characters at a party at some point, and her life just isn't going very well. And my complaint with this is just, Rachel was someone we liked as a character, or at least I like, someone you do sort of root for. And just because it is the sort of show it is, I guess that's partly why they've done that with her here, but it just annoys me a little bit. I think you could just have one character that's like unpolluted. Obviously, no one is like absolutely perfect and squeaky clean, but it's a different thing to have her go down this path. In a way, she escaped the town, and you could have had her just had like a clean sort of life, but whatever. I guess it's partly because it makes her more vulnerable, and it makes her more vulnerable to Petty, who takes advantage of this because he's you looking for another informant to try and catch Marty out. And obviously Rachel's a good contender for that because she obviously worked with him at the Blue Cat, knows what he's up to pretty much, and is someone who Marty would trust. So Petty plays on this whole thing because Rachel gets involved in like a car accident when she's like high, and he says you can either go to jail for a fair amount of time, or you can make a deal and you can inform for us. So she's blackmailed into doing that. She's blackmailed into going back to the Blue Cat and re-establishing a bond, a link with the birds to help out Petty. But Rachel's a good character, so I can't complain too much about having her back in the drama. My other complaint, which is pretty predictable, but is the stuff with Cade again, because I'm not feeling him as a character. Once again in this episode, he leans on Ruth, like he wants to start making money again, so Ruth uses her relationship with Marty to get him a job. They offer him a job, but he's not happy with it, and I guess he's not happy with it because he's always been a crook, and he's thinking bigger than that rather than just being happy of having any like decent paying job. So he rebuffs the job offer, and just throughout the episode, once again, he's like sort of like kind of laying it on thick with Ruth, and by the end of it, it seems like he's talked her into like helping him get Marty's money. So once again, they've gone down the crook sort of route, and yeah, really he's got this thing over on Ruth, and it's like blackmail. Speaking of Ruth, I will say she's pretty kick-ass in this episode, and I really enjoy her being just badass and direct and putting people in their place. It's one of the fun sides to the characters, especially when they're like no good, dirty scoundrels that definitely deserve it. So this episode, it's a good example because the birds are like looking for more business to try and launder money, and they want to strike a deal with like this old guy who owns like one of these big boats, and it's actually for the casino. They plan on like having the casino on like this boat. I can't remember what they called it, but it's one of those like massive type. Well, it's a yacht basically. I'm pretty sure it's a yacht. So Ruth goes to try and make a deal. Obviously, they're trying to make quite a reasonable deal that doesn't cost them too much, but the sleazy old guy, it's this guy in a wheelchair, which I guess shows you that sleaze can come in all forms, but he's like trying to like pimp Ruth and kind of try and say, oh, you know, if you have sex with me, being suggestive in that way, then maybe we can work together. And it's a nice little turnaround later in the episode where Ruth basically puts him in his place, basically like kicks his ass. Like, I think she knocks over the wheelchair at one point, but basically puts her foot. She either grabs his like nether regions or puts her foot in it, but it's pretty great stuff. She puts him in place and just lays it out to him. Hey, this is what it's gonna be. You're gonna take this deal, and that's that. And she ends up getting the deal for them and getting the boat. Now, speaking of the casino, because once again, the Bird's trying to get this bill passed so that they can get the casino up and running is one of the big storylines of the episode. And there's good news and bad news for them at the start of the episode. The bad news is the Kansas City Mafia at the start of the episode. They go after Senator Mercer, who's the guy they're trying to get on board, or one of them, because they have to get a certain amount of votes in Congress to get this whole thing passed. And so because of them going after him, it means that like his support for the bill sort of is put on hold, waivers. So that's bad news. Better news is then they do have a little contact to help things move along a bit more smoothly, and that is because Buddy, wouldn't you know, good old Buddy has like ties to like the mafia back in the day, and this character of Frank Cosgrove, who's like a friend of his from many years ago, he goes to meet him with Marty, and they come to an agreement that the casino will be unitized. So once they get it up and running, or they get the bill passed, and then they will unionize workers, I should say. Wendy once again steps up her bid to get the voters, so she again, because of her, through her links with Wilkes and the knowledge he has with some of the dirt on them, she uses further blackmail strategy, and we're definitely seeing Wendy become a much more murky, more unsympathetic character in just how ruthless she is at times and how desperate she is to get things done. She does become very manipulative, whereas, you know, we always saw Marty, at least in the early episodes, as being a bit more like that. But it seems as though Wendy's kind of growing into that more dominant type role as things have gone on. But the other big thing in the episode with Wendy is that Wilkes at one point seems to hold the key to getting the bill passed, and because he's taken a shine into Wendy, and it's Laura Linney, so you can kind of understand that, but he goes all indecent proposal on her, where he's like, if you sleep with me, I'll get this done. And he's obviously got designs on her, probably beyond that, like he sees them being together maybe, but that's kind of the offer. And Wendy like rebuffs him, goes back home, talks to Marty about it, but it's again this very sort of grey type area where at one point they're actually considering it, but only if Wendy's like up for it or is willing to do it. And so it sort of looks at one point like she's reconsidered, because she goes back to like Wilkes's house, but he sort of tells her then there's no need now anyway because we've gotten our own way. It seems like the pressure has like told. So some meaty stuff with like the politic in this episode, which I quite enjoyed. The other thing with Wendy, which I think at least gives her a bit more of a sense of conscience in this one, is that she does see the preacher Mason out on the street. He's now obviously a single parent. He's preaching on the street, but he's also got his son Zeke with him, I guess, because he can't get anyone to look after him, and it's not ideal. It's very sad to see, and she's obviously very sympathetic. So I think at one point she talks to Marty about helping out, and she wants to help them in the future. And Marty's actually like, maybe down the road, but for now we've got bigger problems to worry about. So you can maybe see a scenario where they help out the preacher later on if they get the casino up and running and the money they get from that, possibly. We'll see. You sort of feel they're going to come back to it at some point anyway. And the only other thing with the Snells in this episode, as we go to them, is Darlene is looking for a baby. Someone to fill the void left by Ash. And there's obviously a little bit of a guilt trip going on there because obviously Jacob killed him, and she tries to pressure him into like adopting a baby, and he doesn't go for it. But in any case, that's obviously going to be a storyline to keep your eye on, and that definitely like spices things up with the Snells. So bit of tension once again with them. So good stuff. Anyway, that's Ozark once again. Episode 2 of the second season. It's sort of bubbling along very nicely. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do comment on anything I've said. Like and subscribe as always. You can share me out on social media. I'm sort of really cooking on two fronts here, where I'm reviewing Stranger Things at the moment as well, and I'm actually on season 2 of that, like the start of season 2 as well, so it's almost identical. But it's a similar idea where Stranger Things obviously returns at the end of May, so the plan is to be ready and up to date for season 4 in May. And similar here with Ozark, where I plan to have it ready and up to date for the final episodes when they dropped at the end of April. So at the moment I'm doing one of each a day, and I'll probably keep that up for a while. So you can probably expect another Ozark tomorrow. But thanks for listening, guys. See you again soon.